Welcome to the February edition of the Leadership Series. I'm Liska Turner and I interview a wide range of CEOs from the not-for-profit sector. And today I'm joined by Nicola Stokes, CEO of the Sydney Children's Hospital Foundation. I'm truly delighted to have her here. Welcome, Nicola.
Thank you very much, Liska. It's lovely to be here.
So Nicola, let's start. CEOs lead from the front. What are the most important decisions that you make as a leader of your organisation?
Look, I think it, apart from, getting the strategy right and putting the right people in place and having a good direct report team, I think there's two key things for me. One, after any sort of environmental scan or any sort of crisis or anything that's going on, is to hold strong, to continue on the path, to lead and encourage the staff and say, yep, we're still on that path, that's absolutely fine, and well done. You will accomplish, you will achieve. I think that's really important. And then the other side of that is when you do need to review or recalibrate based on changing circumstances, to do that, to communicate that, and to own the risk as CEO and not put that on the organization. So yeah, I think they're the two biggest sort of categories of decisions that you make in order for your team and therefore the organization to be able to succeed and thrive.
I think the key word that you mentioned there is communicate. Do you have, do you have a particular communication methodology that you use when you do need to recalibrate?
Yes, absolutely. I actually have a communication methodology at all times in the organization. So on a Monday, it's this detailed and it works for me. So on a Monday afternoon at 4 p.m., I meet my head of corporate communications and my head of marketing, and we sit down and we review the weeks ahead. And we look at what are the key messages that we need for staff, for donors, for my board, and for the community. We then look at the various channels that would be most effectively received, and then we decide which ones are being written by me and which ones are being written by them for me then to tailor to my style to deliver. And we do that even in times of, we hold that meeting even if there's no actual direct communication happening in that week, which actually doesn't always happen. We always do something. It's conscious. It's a conscious decision not to communicate, as well as a conscious decision to communicate, and that holds really well for my sort of style of leadership.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you for that. So, the big elephant in the room is COVID is still with us in 2021. It's called COVID-19, but it journeyed with us in 2020, and now it's still here. So in addition to the principles that you've talked about that fundamentally guide you, what did you do different last year, and then to that end, potentially having to do different this year?
Yeah, look, I think from a leadership point of view, it was the same things in a different order with a different emphasis. So number one, it was a crisis. So classic crisis management. So I did all of the communication in relation to COVID. And there was, so that every time I sent an email to staff, board, or donors, from me, it was about COVID. That's where they got the message from. What that did was, as in any crisis management, it relieved stress and gave certainty. So no one else had to make those decisions. And because a couple of our offices are actually in the hospitals, we were given 24 hours to get out because the pediatric hospitals were being shut down. And so I think that was really, really key is the actual crisis. And remember, it was a crisis, and all those things that we adhere to all of those good principles that have been developed many years before us. The constant communication in relation to staff around what you have to do, what you can do, it's okay that you're working at home was crucial. From a donor point of view, the messaging was, we can be your one source of truth in relation to this, because we will pass on the messages from New South Wales Health directly to you. So we stopped 100% asking for money, and we became their source of information as how they could protect them and their family from this disease, and catching and spreading. And so it changed us in the minds of our donor, but it had an incredible effect on stewardship. And so they've always been there for us when we needed money to further pediatric health. Now we were there for them to give them the information they needed to keep their family safe. So that was a different type of communication generally. I can see my eyes looking all around because I'm sort of trying to remember a year ago what it felt like. And reassurance was also important, which was a new piece around all of our staff. It will be all right. Okay, just take a breath. We weren't going to make any knee-jerk reactions or big decisions based on very little information. And so that was also really, really important. And then the last sort of piece that was very different is I put together, I asked for volunteers to work with me to put a paper to our board named "Work is what we do, not where we go." Because as well as us moving out and working remotely, I needed to reassure staff that we could do it, so they needed to be part of working at how we could do it. Also needed to reassure my board that we could do it and we would continue to be able to raise money. And so I chaired those meetings and helped the team of 6 through the thought process, but they actually pulled all of the information together internally, externally, what could we do? And then that paper was presented to my board, and that is what we did last year and what we're doing this year.
So with the challenges, you use the word stewardship, which, you know, is so often a word that I use. What does a CEO do? They steward the business through and they navigate change. You've used it in relation to your donors. Were there any silver linings that came out of that shift in relationship with your donor community?
Yeah, it still brings a little lump to my throat because there are a few donors who phoned me to say, it'll be okay. Our business or our family trust or whatever is still doing all right. We will still be donating.
Wow.
And it just was, you know, I still tingle a little bit. How amazing are they to think of us? You know, so I think that was because we shifted our relationship with them, they were shifting their relationship with us, which was beautiful. Staff as well, that's some lovely thank yous. We're not a very big team, so I sort of know everyone anyway, but we're big enough. But some lovely thank yous from staff just around keeping them informed. And then probably the other silver lining is some of my team just absolutely stood up, took on everything they could possibly take on to make it better for the donors, for the hospitals, for the kids, for their colleagues. So lots of silver linings along the way. Indeed, it's a lovely term that you use because it's what we actually called our annual report for the end of
did you?
End of June. We named it the silver linings, because we were just, gosh, people are amazing, you know, and if you trust in them, they will do the best thing most of the time.
You know, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, Nicola. You know, people are amazing. And I think last year really brought that culture to the fore as well, because one of the things, you know, in the various CEO roundtables that I've hosted is there was a concern about when we can't lay eyes on everybody, how do we keep our culture together? And I know even here at Beaumont, we've had to flex about how we do that because that's something that we've taken a lot of pride in. So as CEO, I suppose it's a two-part question. How do you shape culture? And are you going, is it different now?
Yeah, look, that was really interesting, that point, because very early on, we got a little sense of that. And some of my sort of less seasoned leaders were going, well, how do I know if people are working if I can't see what they do? Now, we've always had a flexible work environment and we have a strong KPI culture. There are targets you have to achieve. We realigned our targets, but the fact of that not able to see you thing really hit home very, very quickly. So what we did is I made my diary visible to everybody. So there's a way to, and I use my diary, like if I were, say, you and I are having a one-on-one, the diary entry is there, but when you open up, it's all the topics that we're going to discuss and how we discuss it. But there's a way to let everyone see your diary and not be able to drill in. So I was able to show transparency of what I was doing and at the top of each day where I was. Because even pre-COVID of Randwick, Westmeadow, York Street. So I started to use that mechanism. So anyone in the whole organization could see where I was and what I was doing. Okay. And you can do private on some of those. If I was going to get my nails done, probably didn't want the whole world to know that.
True.
So, but also it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
So diary was first. I also meet with what we call our leadership team. So that's not my direct reports, it's their direct reports and a few others. On a monthly basis, they meet as a team, and I join them for the first 15 minutes, and they can ask me any question that they want to. And I'll answer it or I won't, depending on. If I'm not going to answer it, I'll tell them why. And so that was really, really important. And the last thing I did was sort of a bit of a big step for me. So as CEOs, we all work every hour of every day. So that's a lot, but it's also very flexible. Like, it does give us that. And my perfect Sunday morning is to get up, go out on the farm, do sort of animal chores, come back, work, and then sit down with a coffee before Insider starts at ABC at 9 o'clock. That's my Sunday. Then I can watch Offsiders, I love the sport, and blah, blah, blah. So I was sitting there one Sunday morning in my farm clothes, my feet up in my big woolly socks, a cup of coffee in my hand, and I took a photo, and then I took a selfie. And I posted it to the team. And I said, this is my Sunday morning. And I've just, fed the horses, did the lambs. I did this work, and I'm sitting here, and this is me thriving. And so it started to show there's lots of different ways that you can work. There's lots of different ways to be effective. And none of you knew I was doing that, and you didn't have to, but this is my version. And then just what's your photo? So we started to create this permission, because that's really important part of a culture in such a quick shift. You can work from anywhere. It's fine. You still have targets. You still have to behave appropriately, but actually you can work from anywhere. We have the technology to do that. So I think that was culturally quite a big shift. The diary thing was very big for everybody, went down really well. Leadership thing had been in place a little bit, but me then going.
And was that photo to your whole business or to your leadership team?
To the whole staff, the whole foundation.
Do you think you became more accessible and more visible to the whole business? Because that's one of the themes that I've certainly heard other CEOs say, that staff really didn't want to lose that connection to the CEO that they suddenly had.
Yes, look, it's an interesting question because multiple locations. I think maybe Zoom and COVID has made me more accessible than before. Because I was never in the same place any day of the week. And obviously, like a lot of CEOs in our sector, I was also out, donors, or whatever. So actually, they had more access to me than maybe before, which I love, frankly. It was really, really good. The other thing that came up, because my diary was open, I have what's called recharge every single day. And one of the things the LT asked me, said, what do you do to recharge? Like, what is that? And for me, it says no technology.
Okay.
So this is an absorbing medium. Zoom is harder. So when you're in a face-to-face with a person, you have all their body language, all the things that we actually use to work out how our message is being received and what we're hearing. We get none of this here. So we're working harder and harder to interpret what we're seeing, because we can't hear it, we can't touch it, it's not three-dimensional. And so the recharge for me was either go for a walk, read something that's on a piece of paper, not on a screen of any kind. And so that was, again, just culturally showing you have to recharge. This is too hard. But we won't stop that now. We're probably going to keep that up. So that was good.
It's interesting. I posted yesterday on LinkedIn, there was an article in the Harvard Business Review about thinking time. And it was really interesting. It got a bit of traction. And, it's obviously topical. And this one CEO that was quoted, he said, you don't pay me to solve problems, you pay me to think about the problems, And it was just so it's and actually Nina, our MD, just sort of said, we have a 4-day work week here at Beaumont, and she said, which she never takes. And she said, I'm actually now going to take it and use it as my thinking time.
Yeah,
because, you know, so very, very topical at the moment. You've mentioned
absolutely.
you've mentioned your board a couple of times. What role does your board play in setting culture?
Yeah, really, a very important role. But anytime I'm asked about my board, so this is my third CEO role, right?
Yeah.
And I'm the best CEO I've ever been. And there's a couple of reasons for that.
Yeah.
One is I understand what my board is, right? So that I think what people forget about is why were your board recruited and why did they join? So my board is a strategy and governance board. It's not a philanthropy board. So I'm not going to ask my board members for millions of dollars. That's not why they were recruited. So you have to be really clear. And you also have to be clear, is it a board or is it a management committee? And they're also very things.
Yeah.
And what did the people, when they joined, why did they think they were joining and what were their skills? So that's very important, because if you understand that, then the role in culture is also very, very clear. Now, I have a HR professional long time ago, but in the area of culture. And the other thing that I'm still not resolved on, and you know, it's sort of a lifelong sort of piece, is can an organization actually create a culture when all the human beings who are coming in have their own culture in their own life, in their own education, in their own family? What is it that you really think they're going to drop that whole culture at the door, come and create your culture, and then go back to their own? So it's sort of more around values and behaviors that we have.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say to you, because I did some studies in leadership, and one of the things, Beaumont has a very distinctive culture, and I thought people come and go, and what is it that keeps this thread that this is the Beaumont way? And values. And I think, and it's behaviors, and this is what this value looks like in the workplace. This is what it doesn't look like. So, so interesting. I think you've nailed that one. Is there anything else?
So from my board, their job, right, as far as I'm concerned, is to challenge and support me.
Yeah.
So they have to challenge in strategy development, in budgeting, in all of those things. And then once they sign those off and agree, they're to support me delivering them. So that, and then I can challenge and support them back. I can also challenge something, but my job is to support them, be the absolute best directors on board that they can be. So they're two really important cultural behaviors of ours, because then I challenge and support my ELT and they back to me and down, because then it allows for creativity, discussion and debate in the whole challenge piece. And then once we've agreed, and you're always part of the decision-making process, you may not agree with the outcome, but you're part of the process, then we support each other to actually do that. So culturally, that's the strength for us.
Yeah, because that permission to challenge and really challenge it's a hard thing to do, because not all leaders actually are comfortable being challenged. So then the words and the behaviors don't match, and then you're in a little bit of a pickle. So,
so we talk about a round table discussion and a square table discussion. So in my ELT meetings, I'll say, this is a square table discussion, which means I'm the CEO. Give me your input, your thoughts, or ideas. I am going to make the decision. Or this is a round table discussion. What do we all think? Right? And so it's a very different, and then the permission is because you've already, in our agendas, when there are discussion items, we actually put a circle or a square. So you know what your role is and where the permission is. So it makes things a little clearer, a little easier.
Doesn't Brené Brown say clear is kind, unclear is unkind? And so that's exactly what you're doing. It's providing clarity. So, you know, talking about this whole people piece, you've appointed a head of leadership development, you know, which I was just delighted when I saw, because it's not really an appointment or a title that you see in commercial or the for-purpose sector. So what was the motivation to appoint Erica to that role?
Yeah, look, I believe I have some of the very best fundraisers in my organization. And I'll just focus on that because it's the largest group of staff. But where's my competitive advantage? So if I have a fantastic platform about how we fundraise and our own methodology, and I've got the great people to actually fundraise,
Yeah.
it's actually, I believe, the leadership that gives us the competitive advantage. So that's leadership of our own teams, leadership of our donors. We need to help them understand what's going on and then listen to what they want. Leadership of the clinicians and the network in the world of fundraising, leadership of our board, because obviously leadership is always. I need successors for all this. I want this foundation to be thriving decades into the future. And it's leadership that is the key in all of its forms. And also, I think from an internal focus point of view, everybody wants to be a manager or a general manager, whatever. They don't always understand that maybe they're not the best job. Sometimes a senior specialist with 1 or 2 people working for you is the best job. So we try to create where you have all the roles are as senior as each other, but some are senior specialists and some are line managers. So this concept of leadership across all of its various forms is what I think the competitive advantage for us is and will continue to be. I need to get ahead of the game because leadership is also a form and maybe a way of thinking about the world.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly with you. And it's interesting in organizations that invest in strategic HR, they might not call it that leadership development. You know, they're a vital part of the CEO's communication and connection with their employees. You know, it's surprising how many organizations still don't have HR sitting on leadership teams. So, but anyway, that's a whole nother conversation.
And another thing, just maybe a discussion for another day as well, is I have this sort of vision organization that I would love to lead that I'm getting closer and closer to over time. It started previously. It has to do with chaos theory. So chaos, a chaotic event, we think, you know, is so sort of destructive and unmanageable. If you pull far enough back in nature, looking at a chaotic event, there's things called strange attractors. They actually contain the chaos and give the chaos purpose. So if I could have an organization, if I could lead an organization, if I could be part of an organization where the strange attractors are the values, so you have little or no policies or procedures and you let chaos reign.
Yes.
How amazing would that be? And some people are doing versions of this. There are some organizations are way ahead of me on it, but it's something I was introduced to this maybe about 15 years ago.
Wow.
And some people, as in organized, do not want to be part of that. That is, it's pushing it way too far. So I think the leadership piece is nearly another stepping stone towards getting to that really very fluid organization.
Offline, I'm going to have to ask you about that because I find that quite fascinating.
Great bit of work, not done by me.
No, but that's really interesting. But just to return to your current world, so, you know, under your leadership, some people might not know that you merged the fundraising entities of the Randwick and Westmead Children's Hospitals. So what were your guiding leadership principles through that process? Because the word merger often can be a bit tricky.
Yeah. And just a little bit of context. So I did mergers and acquisitions for a lot of my life in financial services and banking, and none of them based on those models and success criteria ever deliver the value that are enormously put as the goal of the merger or the acquisition. And so I decided to design my own model for this. The guiding principles were about agility and flexibility. And the way that I put that in place was every month we would review everything we were doing and we would change and adjust every single month. And we would use the experience of the people, of the staff, and their input to actually make the next adjustment. So extraordinarily exhausting, blows all change management theories out of the water. Harder work than maybe anyone would want to go down the path, but I kept every single staff member, I kept every single donor, and we achieved every single financial target throughout the 2-year transition.
Wow.
So
long
there,
time.
yeah. Yeah, and tired. We were all tired, but everyone had a role to play, and we did not set and forget. We had we'd used all the tools, all the classic. You have to have a project plan, but never before have I led something that we altered every single month. We made it better and better and better. Yeah.
Did you have a goal or an articulated goal that you were working towards? So while you were iterating each month, did you have something as your true north that you were working towards?
Yeah, I didn't want to lose any staff or any donors. I wanted every staff member from Westmead who had to resign from their jobs in the government,
yeah,
and come and work for a non-government entity. And then that the donors all came as well. They were just the two. They're very big goals, but we achieved them. We achieved them together. So yeah. And did everyone love the 2 years? No. So let's not pretend that was happening. Did we all know where we were going? So healthy kids, whatever it takes.
Yep.
That's why we exist. And so we continue to do that. So my thanks to all of my staff, my thanks to the donors, and to all of the clinicians. It was hard work, but we all got there.
Would you have done anything differently? It doesn't sound like it, but would you have done anything differently? Knowing at the end what you didn't know at the beginning?
See, I don't think so, but there must be something, because we did a complete post-implementation review as well. Interestingly, and the jury's out still. It was last May we completed. There was feedback that we should have gone quicker.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. But I don't think you could have gone quicker reviewing every single month and making those. I think I would have lost people along the way. Yeah. But 2 years is too long. Yeah. So crikey, I'm not sure. In my expectation, it wasn't. A government department and a separate company combined. Yep. So a due diligence room, all of the technology, selecting one database over the two, going through all of that process, all of the staff, all of the contracts, all the job descriptions, the structure, it's pretty massive.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, when you're not sitting on the leadership team and you don't have that holistic view of all the things that actually need to be taken into consideration, people sometimes don't even realise that those things need.
Yeah. And I run what we call foundation forums every quarter, and through that's all staff, and we told them every quarter they got the update of the project plan and how we were going and everything we achieved and everything we hadn't achieved and everything we pushed out and everything we'd done quicker, so they could see everything.
So coming back to that communication that we started with,
Why is it always communication? Why is it?
I think it's because we're people, Nicola.
I think so too. Because it's the one thing, when you go back and you look at anything you're proud of.
Yeah.
There's always probably more or different or using a different medium or something from a communication point of view.
So turning my questions a little bit more towards you as a person, what do you think your best habit is?
It's actually fed back to me by one of my direct reports when we're doing a mid-year review. So my best habit is that I allow my brain to rest.
Okay.
Now, the way I do that, which may not suit everyone, is I have thinking about the foundation. I think about the farm. I think about what if I could build an entire market garden on the farm. And I do that so that when I'm thinking about the foundation, my brain rests on the other two things. Then when I need to rest on the foundation, I can think about the farm or the market garden, because I know the way that my brain works is to come up with the best idea or to solve something I'm aiming at or to look to the future. I need to churn around sort of the foundation stuff, and then I need to let it go to the back and let it be and busy myself with other things. I also do you know what a speedball is? One of these in the gym?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, that is the way to let my whole brain stop, because when you're doing this,
so hard.
you can't. The minute you think of anything else, you've lost it, and that lovely is gone. And I like to run.
Yeah.
So they're my habits. Let my brain rest, and then by thinking of different things at different times, and then when I need my brain to stop, make sure I'm physically doing something.
Yeah, I have to say, yes, I call it noodling while you're not thinking about it, you know.
Absolutely.
And
we know that's how the brain works. Like, we know that's how it works. So you might not want to have 4 things going at once, but my recommendation is find your version of the thing that allows your brain to stop thinking, because those loops we get in. It's like scenario planning over and over.
So where did you draw your support and inspiration from as a leader?
Yeah. Look, it's always been, someone asked me very early on, Micah, who was the leader I, aspired to be. And there actually isn't one. I draw it all from the people around me. People are phenomenal. Like, it doesn't matter what they do or where they come from, but I'm inspired by how people lead. In COVID, for example, you saw all those choirs that were, singing online. And it's just people getting about and doing things in a different way. I love to observe and think and contemplate about how did they do that. And I also know that I can only be the leader that I am. And I think that's another thing that's important for everybody. Don't try and be somebody else. Like, look at the things they do, admire, see how it would fit within your frame. But yes, I'm much more observing and considering. I read a lot.
Well, that was my
next. Much in COVID as much as I thought I would, mind you. But yeah, it's more. I love to observe what's going on. Like, you can watch a kid walking down the streets, not so much anymore, I'm probably showing my age, they have those backpacks full of books on their back, and I watch them and go, oh my God, how is that poor little person doing that? Like, what are they thinking about as they're walking along? And look at that, they're trudging through, and I don't know how many kilos are on their back, and so what's that determination? Like, how are they thinking? It's just nice to see the world and the amazing people that are all around you, and that's leadership. In my head, that's sort of leading.
So you mentioned reading. You didn't read as much as you thought you would. So do you have sort of a top tip book recommendation that's really resonated with you that you'd like to share, or any magazines or blogs that you follow?
Yeah, I'm one of those people. So I still read books. And they need to be fiction, and I need to have 2 or 3 on the go at once. So that's escapism. McKinsey Insights I find hugely valuable, and when you log on to them, you can tick all the categories that you're interested in. So I tick all of them. I learn about engineering and oil refinery, and it doesn't really matter. They're fabulous. They're really, really, really fabulous. When we used to travel,
yes, there is.
Qantas's radio station with Alan Coa. He used to interview all these amazing leaders and entrepreneurs and business startups, and that was just, again, sort of really important. Lovely mediums that are storytelling, because humans learn that way. TED Talks always. So I suppose, actually, and the AICD magazine.
Yep,
it's really powerful. So that's for me, that's enough breadth. I do a lot online, but if I can get a physical thing, I still really like that way. I have to do both, but I like.
Nothing beats a book.
I know.
I might be old school, but I'll take a paper book any day.
And I try to read things I don't agree with.
Okay.
I try to read things that I just challenge, like make me uncomfortable in thoughts or philosophies or whatever, just to keep that balance going.
Brain ticking over. You talked earlier about being proud of a leadership decision. Can you nail one in particular, or think of one in particular that you're most proud of?
Look, I'll give a very recent and an old one. So I'm really proud of, in March, I went to the board and said, we will not make anyone redundant in 2020. And a lot of not-for-profits did.
Yeah.
And my logic was, this is very short-sighted. Who makes a decision when you actually don't know and you don't have enough information? Yeah. It takes at least 6 months to get across the complexity of our beneficiary, that whole network. And so if I make people redundant now, I will put this foundation back further than you can ever imagine. And I was quite clear that that was what I was going to do as CEO. And so I'm very proud of that. It could have backfired? Of course it could. Any decision could have, but I just knew that was the right thing for us and for the kids, because we have to keep that money flowing. So that's that one. The other leadership decision I probably one that stands out in my mind, I suppose, is, so I was the global head of shared services for ANZ Bank, and I set up the captive center in Bangalore in India. And what we were doing is we were moving all of the business-to-business processes to India and keeping all of the customer processing in Australia. So when you picked up a phone, an Australian, and you spoke to someone in a call center, they were in Australia. And I pushed that was what we needed to do organizationally. And that in Bangalore, the businesses we serviced were looking for the lowest cost banking provision. And so let's move all of that. So that was really, really important. But I also was very lucky to have the environmental sustainability portfolio as GM Shared Services. And we became the #1 sustainable bank in the world as a result of the programs that we put in place. Not only our footprint, but with a large group of amazing people across ANZ Bank who we loaned money to and what they did with it. And as a result, I was voted by 80 banks around the world to sit on the United Nations UNEP-FI, which was the finance initiative around, it may look like you're loaning money to this reputable organization, but what are they doing with the money that you loan them? And under John McFarlane, who was CEO of ANZ Bank at the time, ANZ stopped funding, which we found through the chain, the type of landmines that when you stand on them and they jump up to your waist height and then they explode. So we were shutting down businesses based on the ethics of that, not the profitability.
Yeah, brave leadership, that.
Yeah, good people in that organization, really good people.
My last question to you is, what advice would you give to a first-time CEO? But actually, what advice would you give to Nicola, the first-time CEO?
Probably the same one. You have to understand your board. Okay, it is. I wish I had known now. Well, my first CEO was the CEO of the Australian Diabetes Council. That relationship is absolutely crucial to knowing and understanding them, knowing what they were. I'm sort of repeating myself from earlier. I know, but it's sort of who are they? Why did they join your board? And make them the best that they can be. Your job is to support them as much as they are to support you. So I think that's crucial to be a successful CEO, because the flip side of that is if you don't have a good relationship with your chair and your board, and you don't challenge and support effectively, you're not actually going to enjoy your role as CEO. It will become so difficult. So that would be the first bit.
Anything else? I mean, that really is actually the foundation of, because I was talking to another.
You don't need to know everything.
Yeah.
As CEO, and probably best you don't. See, I'm whispering that because there was a while I thought I had to know the answer to absolutely everything, and that's why you have an executive team.
And as you say, some things you just learn with time and wisdom, really, at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
But
There's some point in your career, and I think I'm at it, or maybe I've been there for a while, I don't know. So you sort of are the bright young thing, you know, and then you go through and then you're just succeeding and leading from the front because you're the thing. And then you become the teacher. Like there's this shift, and it happens to everybody, but it happens at different points in your career. And being prepared for that shift and being prepared to get all that satisfaction via others versus doing it yourself. I think I don't know when that happened. I think I'm there. I might have been there for a little while. I'm not really sure. But that's sort of my current, it makes me look like a lunatic. That's what I'm sort of thinking at the moment. When does that shift happen, and how do you prepare yourself for that? Very different way of thinking about who you are.
I think maybe it's just that, you know, just growing into a role and observing, and just part of the development as a CEO as you find your feet and your confidence and know what works.
I like that.
You know, so Nicola, it's been such a delight talking to you. I think we could chat all afternoon, but you have other things to do because you are a busy CEO and people can see you a diary.
And you too. Look, it was lovely. It's really nice to do these things because they're actually a point of self-reflection as well. So your questions will sit with me for a while and hopefully make me better at what I do.
Okay, thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.